KTN News. Get the whole story.
Now, welcome back to Scoreboard on a night in which we are discussing what's making news in sports both on and off the pitch. Now, we've spoken about that monster that is doping. Let's paint a picture about it. Now, Kenya is known world over as what? As the home of athletics. We produce winners by the dozen. Every time you turn, there's a new Kenyan winning somewhere else. But since 2016, things took a little bit of a turn. Kenya was placed in category A of that doping list. What does that mean? That Kenya is a high-risk country. It means doping is prevalent in this country, and the Athletics Integrity Unit came out and said, you know what, we are setting for you a number of steps that you must take so that we make sure you conform to what we want you to do. Now, 6 years on, earlier this week, we were told, you know what, Kenya, you've made steps, yes, but you still stay in category A. Now, tonight, we discuss that. We find out what does that mean, what's the impact of that, and what can we do as a country to change that so that at least we can go from category A to category B and hopefully in the end to categories. Now with us in studio are two gentlemen who know all about athletics. One's an administrator, the other one is a coach, a man who's coached a world champion, an Olympic silver medalist, and a man on whom we place a lot of our faith and hope and trust in. That's Coach Ben Ouma. Farthest from me, Coach, thank you very much for coming in at such a short notice. Asante sana.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Barnaba Koril, who is a former athlete himself and now a man who does a lot of administrative work as far as Kenya and athletics is concerned, whether it's Kipkeino Classic, whether it's Athletics Kenya branch, whether it's the youth. Barnaba, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, gentlemen, what does it mean when they say you are staying in category A, Barnaba?
Thank you for asking that question. It means that there are certain countries that has been placed under category A because of the prevalence of doping in their countries, and it means that there are regulations which it is covered by Rule 15. There's some areas that they have to follow before the athletes can compete during the championship or any other competition. So those are the things that as Kenya we are in category A, and we must abide by those rules that we have been given within that category.
Now, Mr. Koril, this started in 2016 when we were told you are at risk of not going to the Olympics. 6 years on, how far have we come?
I think since 2016, Kenya has done quite well. We have gone through several stages that have been very difficult at times, even during the World Championship that we have had before and other Commonwealth Games. There are those rules that our athletes have to maintain before they can be allowed to compete. And I think within those parameters, Athletics Kenya has done quite well in ensuring that proper education and also guidance with World Athletics, AIU, Integrity Unit, and also ADAC that has been working together in partnership to ensure that these programs are maintained and ensure that our athletes also understand those rules that they have to observe before any competition.
Coach Ben, 6 years on, we are still being told stay exactly where you are. What haven't we done correctly? What could we have done better?
I think I'll mention what we've done correct, which my boss, Mr. Koril, just mentioned as well. You know, we are the first handlers when you come to the athletes because we stay with them all around the clock, not 24 hours, but better part of our developmental stage into where now they can go to the outside world and compete. You and probably others as well and supporters, you see champions, you see winners, position 1, position 2, and you see losers. As a coach and of course the federation, we see a society, we see a group of youth who are talented and love sports. And just like in a society, the mixture of personalities, in every sporting activity, probably there could be a mixture of some characters. But if you look at the way and the direction this has taken, it is in a very good direction. However, there's perception around this doping thing. Because if you look at it closely from a coach's perspective, we are all guilty till proven innocent. And I'll explain that.
Yes.
It is sad that the rules are very blanket thrown to every one of us, from the Caucasians, the Asians, and the Africans. And this is where technology is beating us hard. Every rule was set with an environment that we are tech savvy, we have internet everywhere. And I'm heading somewhere that you mentioned, the whereabout issue, which of course they're making it look nice now. But more than once I've gone to the Federation, I've gone to the guys in charge of AIU, can you make this user-friendly? And they're making it user-friendly at the moment because of the prevalence of internet coverage in some of our areas. And some of our athletes are so talented, but of course we cannot get everything. Talent and maybe prevalence of knowledge.
I tell you what, Coach Ben, we will come back to that. Bernard, you've heard the opening statements from both Mr. Korir and Coach Ben, and they are saying, you know what, we are on the right track, we are doing the correct thing, and possibly people are not seeing just how well we are doing. Do you agree with that?
James, it's very sad that the home of champions can be in any category at all in that list, whether A or B. Can you imagine that we are now trying hard to move from category A to just be moved down? It's the saddest thing we can ever say about Kenyan athletics. This has been a powerhouse. This is a house that referred to as a house of champions. Why do we still have people who are doping at the moment? I am listening and feeling a little bit sad for the coach, Ben Ouma, for what he's saying, that they are guilty until proven innocent. Why? Because the first port of call, the first place that you suspect an athlete is doping from is from the coach. You know, the coach is the one who's with him all the time. I know there's a nutritionist who's also telling the athlete what to do, what to eat and all that. But how about a situation where one is being sanctioned for whereabouts violation? How do we hold the coach responsible for that? Does the coach know where this athlete is all the time? This is just bad manners. It's really not about coaching. Coach Ben Ouma's responsibility should be how to get this sprinter to win a gold medal, how to get this sprinter to win a bronze medal, how to get this sprinter to post better times. It should not be to look at where this athlete is going to be. I know Mombasa Road has done a lot for athletics, but sadly lately he has to write about things that have happened in athletics. Why can't we know and sift out all the athletes who want to do things illegally and remain clean? We're talking about the greatest athlete, the greatest marathoner in the history of marathon in Eliud Kipchoge. And then we're talking about Eliud Kipchoge coming from a country that is in category A of doping. How do you put the two things in one sentence? This is where my pain is. I remember a couple of years back, and I think Coach Ben Ouma will remember, not a couple of years, a few months back, there was a story about an athlete claiming that he had used contaminated supplements. James, you wouldn't drink contaminated soda. You will see it, you will know. Must you take that supplement at that time if you suspect it's going to be of detrimental use to you? I am just feeling that pain of a country that has been so great in athletics suddenly being written off and being placed on other countries, on a list of other countries that have had systemic doping. But looking at where Kenya is coming from and the new cases that are coming up every time, now ADAC, I think in the last 2 years, has handled the bulk of the cases that they've ever handled in their entire existence as ADAC. Remember when ADAC was being formed, we didn't even know what it was supposed to do. Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, we didn't know. We knew WADA, but even WADA, we didn't know what they were doing. And then there was ADAC. And suddenly we start finding ADAC investigating. This is not a good way to go, and this is a very worrying trend, according to me.
So let me just a question, guys. Bernard speaks about back in the days we didn't even know what exactly WADA was about. I remember the furor when John Ngugi was suspended. So is it a case of drug use has increased or the testing has increased? Which is which? I think that's the question Bernard is putting out there. Coach, Mr. Korir.
Yeah, I think the argument here, I understand where it comes from. We are dealing with human beings, people who have got their own responsibilities. And if you read the regulations, one of the regulations from AIU, or from WADA. It says that the responsibility falls on the athlete themselves. It is their responsibility to know what is their intake, where they're ingesting in. But you see, if we look at this doping menace simplistically, we are not going to get it right, because it is getting more complex now. There are so many other factors that are involving in this thing. First of all, it comes to the issue of the economy. You know, the situation where they are, their environment, and of course, it also historically where the new ones are learning from. So you have athletes that are suffering. They normally think maybe if they take this thing so that it can improve their economic status, it might help. So there are so many other factors. We cannot look at simplistically the way we are talking now. So we have to go deeply and try to understand exactly what is going on. Secondly, and allow me to say this, you know, everybody talks about Athletes Kenya. That is the responsibility of the Athletes Kenya to ensure that the athletes observe. But you see, Athletes Kenya, with the support of the Kenyan government, have tried everything possible to educate, to give all the information that is necessary against that. But then you realize it is continuing. So it is important for the society itself now to take stock of what is happening, and then everybody to take part and actually talk about this issue, because it's no longer something that you just whisper. It's a matter of talking about it now.
So essentially, the usage has increased, the testing has increased, Coach. Do you agree that is it the testing that has increased? Is it the usage that has increased?
Remember, Kenya as a power, and understand what Bernard was referring to. And you know the number of athletes we produce. This is heavily laden with talents. Of course, we can't compare ourselves with the surrounding East African, Uganda, and whatever. There's a very thin line between doping and not doping. If you talk of doping, many people will think of the steroids, the growth hormones, and the rest. But do you know something like antihistamine is doping? So there's a very thin line between normal treatment and any other medicaments, depending on how the treaty put it. And Athletics Kenya really put out, in conjunction with ADAC, AIU, a form of educational programs for the athletes.
But Coach...
So the testing has really gone up to protect the good athletes.
But Coach, we had antihistamines back in the 90s. We had them back in the 80s. We just seem to test positive a lot more. The numbers just seem to keep on growing and growing. And it's good that we were running those when you were saying what are the doping violations. There is a lot of them, there's 10 of them. But there is one which Ken feels very strongly about. Ken, just ask the gentleman. I know, the one that pricks you all the time. And maybe we can tackle that one, because that seems to be Kenya's biggest problem.
Yeah, I just wonder, because for me it is a very simple thing, that you cannot be found when you are supposed to be. I'm looking for you, I can't find you. I have your number, I can't get you. And this seems to be perennial. This is, if you look at the listing, I looked at the listing of those who've infringed since 2016, when we were put in category A, and that seems to be, you know, it's like a sore thumb. How do you educate these people? Is it that they don't know that they're supposed to be found, or is it just so blatant, or is that the easiest way that they can escape? I mean, please tell me.
I think what you're saying is the same question we also ask ourselves. It is not that the athletes have not been educated about filing their whereabouts. It is very simple. In fact, as the coach has said before, that they have tried to simplify even the program so that they can fill it themselves, they can file it themselves. But then you still find out that some of these athletes are not found in the same place. They are the ones who are filing the venue, the time frame, how they can be found. But then when the DCOs go out to find them, to test them, they are not there.
So would they be doing that on purpose?
Now, I was coming to that.
Okay.
There are two things that we have to look into. One, the athletes actually, especially the senior ones who have competed and they understand exactly the rules, how the rules work. When they missed and they give an excuse, definitely there has to be something that they are trying to miss. Some are genuine, some are blatantly intentional that they are not there then when they are supposed to be there. Some are completely ignorant of the consequences of that. Because you find our people also not even know athletes themselves. Sometimes you see even simple rules that we ought to observe. We just assume, as even Kenyans, not even alone athletes, we continue breaking the same rules, which is a replica of exactly what the athletes are doing in their own themselves. So society. So it is a fact.
Our athletes mirroring our society.
It is exactly mirroring our society. So we cannot even blame them for when you are driving on the road and somebody tries to cut the lanes and you are wondering what is wrong with this person. It is the same thing. You ask yourself, an athlete says, files themselves, that I'm going to be here at 6 o'clock, and then at that time, 6 o'clock disappears. So how do you want to laugh?
Coach, whereabouts failure? It's huge. 2 athletes last week, whereabouts failure? What is it about it? How hard is it for one to say, I'll be here between the hours of 6 and 7 a.m. every single day? Why is it so hard for Kenyan athletes to be found?
I'll echo what my boss, Mombasa Road, just said. It is an administrative issue. It is a societal issue as well. Some of these cases are very genuine because you're human beings. Just like you ambush us to come here late in the evening. So I have to explain to my wife where I am. I have to do it genuinely.
Yes.
If I don't do it genuinely, then it becomes an issue. And of course, Kenya at times we are not, I won't say all of us, but majority of, culturally we are picking up some very responsible trends that we think we can get away with. But you see, those who are manning this whereabout are not Kenyans, they're people from outside. They're very strict, if I tell you. So I would advise our athletes, it is normal to be where you are, and it is again normal not to be where you are genuinely, but speak the truth and prove it. That I'm not around because of this and ABC, and you can back it up with tangible evidence where you are, because it is life, and you are not in prison. I said between 6 and 7, I'm supposed to be here. What about if I have a child who is sick and if you take him to the hospital? I can prove I went to the hospital, documentation to show that. So again, it boils down to an individual character as well. Because these are administrative issues, but they're being framed as doping issues. But they're bluntly just disclosing where you are.
Bernard, I come back to you. Now, 2 things. Number 1, he says it's more administrative than actual doping. I don't know what is your opinion on that. And secondly, look, for you to get banned for whereabouts failure, you've got to miss 3 tests within a 12-month period, Bernard. How plausible is that?
If you're missing 3 tests within that 12-month period, there is a problem. And I'll use Coach Ben Ouma's own example. If he's missing for 3 times on that dinner table in his house on a whereabouts failure, you answer for where he is. You can't say it's normal, it mirrors human society, it mirrors African men, or what. That's not the way it's, that's, if it determines your future, your career, you have to be there. 3 of them. Why missing 1 is fine? And you're saying very nicely, yeah, it was human, I forgot and all that. You can't miss the 2nd one and the 3rd one. There just is a problem and there is some systemic problem with this whereabouts failure in the country. And you see, the only reason why it's being registered as whereabouts failure is because that athlete was not found. But if he was found, maybe now would classify it as doping. I think it probably was not a good thing for Ben to come with his boss because he has to mirror what the boss is saying. But I was going to ask you a very specific question. Do coaches help the athletes to dope, especially when it comes to substance abuse? Because we know of coaches who have been banned before because they gave their own athletes something that gave them some extra energy. Again, on that same spirit of being human, they also wanted the athlete to win so that they win. We know this problem was there before. There is a time AK had to have meetings even with coaches, even with managers, and ban some of them from managing Kenyan athletes. Why? Because they were actually accused of being the ones who are helping these athletes to dope. So I wanted to ask Coach, genuinely, are there coaches who are helping athletes even to evade this whereabouts failure and in retrospect, helping them to dope as well?
Coach, Bernard's posed the question there for you. He says, do coaches assist? Do they abet? Do they help either with the doping or with the whereabouts failure? Or is it purely just the athlete by themselves?
Okay, personally, from my point of view, I work systematically and I don't thrive in confusion. And part of confusion is getting involved in irregularities like doping. Other issues is whereabout as well, which is, yes, something which is really glaring. And for a professional athlete, and I agree with Bernard, but I was not mirroring what my boss was saying. I
Prove him wrong.
I proved him wrong. Yeah, it is in our best interest as well, organically, to produce champions. Of course, there's career issue as well, and you want these athletes to have a longer career. You don't need shortcuts as well, because you have a name to keep. A coach who is going to get involved in irregularities in terms of doping issues, then that's not a coach. That is somebody who is there for some other factors again. And there's some economical push and pull that are driving some such kind of coaches to do that. But genuine coaches who have gone through the system at the federation, they know what they're doing and they know the code of ethics, how to produce champions. It is slow, but it's so enjoyable.
Mr. Correll, we are still in category A. How do we get out of category A? As a federation, what must be done?
That's a very good question. I would also like to ask you and also the Kenyans. What do we do so that we can come out of that? We have done as a federation, with our president leading the charge to make sure that we come out of that. In fact, if you go back and look what he has done to make sure that Kenya is removed from category A, you wouldn't believe it. Even when they say that we were still in category A, it was a shock for us. We were really surprised because we were hoping that the match you have done should be able to live that. But then you realize that there was these small issues, and I want to echo what the coach has said, that we have so many athletes in this country that we should not even be equated like other countries. In Kenya, if you go to check AK, you have more than 7,000 athletes, and most of them are active and very good and participating all over the world. So if you take the percentage of those who have doped against the number of athletes that we have, then you realize even we are still lower percentage-wise. But that does not mean that we should continue to dope. But the question you asked is, I want to respond this way. And this is what I've been thinking personally, that despite the fact that the federation has done so much, the government supporting the federation, we have had ADAC, which was also part of the legislation. It was brought into life by when we wanted to go to Olympic Games, and that was the problem. We have AIU, of course, WADA, working together to make sure that we reduce or eliminate completely. But you can see that persistence is still there. It moved from use of drugs to now whereabouts failures. We are targeting now the reasons why this is happening, and we are just almost getting there. The question that I've always asked myself is, how is it that when an issue like doping now comes, instead of us now focusing and targeting the root cause, then you find that the majority of the commentaries, WhatsApp groups, all those, they target AK as a culprit who has failed to control. But then it is not AK issue alone. This is a national issue that affects everybody. Because the problem we are facing is that, when one person tests positive, they don't carry their own cross themselves. The whole nation, the whole athletes carry the same, because now they say they are Kenyans. If that is the case, then it is our issue, myself, yourself, and everybody else, to understand what is going on and condemn that act the strongest terms possible, and to ensure that those who do that must also understand the consequences. Not only that they can be given 4 years ban, or 2 years, or whatever, but then they cannot fit into the society where people are supposed to be. This is not a normal thing anymore.
You don't want someone to be readmitted after they serve their ban?
I am not saying that nobody should be readmitted. I am saying that the condemnation is such that, it becomes also a deterrent, a measure of deterrent. Even when you come back, you realize that you will also be isolated from participating in that. Of course, there are people who are maybe they deserve. I'm not saying they don't deserve. There are people who deserve because of whereabouts failures, they didn't do, much. But then the question is why. So we need to look at it and say, okay, if this thing happens as a nation, what do we do? Not an individual institution, but as Kenyan society.
Coach, when this happens to your athlete, what do you do? How do you deal with a situation where your athlete is serving a ban or has to serve a ban because of whereabouts violation? And how do you help? What role must you play as a coach to help stop this menace, curb this menace?
Yeah, it's very important, and we've been having a lot of seminars about the whereabout. Not even with athletes alone, even with coaches as well, with AIU having Zoom about this one. Yes, our job is technical and we are in to put them in very good shape. But again, it is our role to advise them, to put systems into place to help them as human beings. You have a brother, you have a sister, so this is society. If everybody becomes responsible from the technical side, administration, the federation, and the family, because it's the family that influences this movement. It's the family that influences doping to come as well. Remember the economic issue that Mr. Bakori mentioned as well. This is as well the support of the family, the sisters, the brother, the doctors. They're not doing this thing alone if they have to dope. So you as an individual, you need to come and help us as well. We cannot blame the government. It starts with you as James, then it comes to the coaches and the federation, the backstop with the federation as well.
Ken?
Yeah, I like that. But I just sat here thinking, so here I am, I'm an athlete. How do I make my money? I make my money by going to races. When I win a race, I make a lot of money. Who do I share that money with? The first direct person I share the race with is my manager. And my manager is the one who arranges for me to go to the races. I don't know if AK gets something out of me, but even if they do, it is a small bit. It is a small portion. The prime beneficiary here is myself and my manager. So I just thought and wondered, as an athlete, I probably came from Ocha somewhere,
Yes.
I don't know about drugs. I don't know about that I can take medicine to make me feel better.
But there is
Panadol.
But there is a list that you are told. Don't take this, don't take this, don't take this, don't take salbutamol, don't take this, don't take this.
I've come from Ocha, maybe I can't even read. So how clean is my manager? That's where I'm going. How clean are these managers that we have, who manage these athletes? Maybe I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just thinking outside the box. That these are the managers who take these guys, encourage them and tell them, utakuwa sawa. And then they tell them to disappear for a few days. And then let's go and run, let's go. I'm just saying, I'm not accusing anyone.
Bernard, Ken has an interesting theory. Do you think they're also culpable?
Yeah. I always knew that Ken came from Ocha, but he's made it bare on national television, so that's okay.
What do you think about his theory of the managers being involved?
No, the thing is, James, and we have to say this very categorically, it doesn't matter where you come from. There is a spirit of gamesmanship that has come into sport. It's no longer sportsmanship, it's gamesmanship. It's winning by all means, whether crooked, whether bringing the other person down, whether it's sabotaging the other person, it's gamesmanship. Now, this gamesmanship is not a one-man show. It includes the manager, it includes the nutritionist. Yes, it is possible at some time that child, that boy from Ocha, that girl from Ocha might not know what is in that plate that they are eating to be able to make, to get that extra energy to be able to run. But I can assure you at some point it also becomes very clear, even to the athlete themselves, that they're using something that is enhancing their performance. The list can be given, and I think AK has a list of all what is not supposed to be taken. And you've been told by Coach Ouma as well, an antihistamine, it could be banned. You have to choose which one it is. You know that there is a cough syrup in this country that has been banned because it's deemed to enhance your performance because it enlarges the lungs. It allows you to cough out better. That means it allows you to have more oxygen. We really just need to hit the nail on the head and find out where the problem is. If the problem is the athlete, that athlete should just be banned. If the problem is the manager, then AK, I think, has the roll call of all the managers who are managing Kenya athletes. There's a time they called them out, and I think they banned a few of them because of some problems. They've got to do it periodically. If athletes are being tested periodically, maybe in a year or so, then the agents must be tested in a year or so. I don't know, James, you know there's that ringworm thing that usually appears on the head. We call it mashilingi. You know, if you were to sort out that problem in one child, you must sort out the problem with the other child who they always play with, because this is contagious. You know, you've got to go together, the two of them, if it's the brothers and what, because it will transfer to that side. So if you're sorting out the athlete, sort out the manager as well, sort out the coach, find out where it came from. That's the only way we're going to rid the country of this problem. That's my word.
Well, that's Bernard there with a very interesting example of mashilingi. I tell you what, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we shall get the closing remarks of the gentlemen in studio, as well as look forward to what's coming up as far as the sporting weekend is concerned. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a bit.